the danger only amplified by Miles' very own superpowers. These visions and Miles' spider sense reaction to them could be leading him to an early grave. Pull down your masks, loyal theorists, we're thwipping into it. So first things first, let's get on the same page about what exactly happens in The Spider Within. The short film starts with Miles thinking about how his lack of superpowered work-life balance is stressing him out. Miles tries to go to bed, but before he can lay down, his spidey sense goes off. He whips around and nothing. There's no one else in the room. He tries to relax, but again he is overwhelmed.
Oh man, I'm bugging.
Before long, Miles is confronted by a shadowy version of himself that pushes him into his bed, into a dream. Here, Miles and the Shadow Man fight before the Shadow turns into a giant spider and chases Miles. It explodes into a swarm of smaller spiders that cover Miles before he screams and curls up in the corner of his room. After a moment, he calms down, and all the spiders are gone. Realizing that he needs to talk to someone, Miles takes a walk with his dad, confiding about what's stressing him out and his crush on a certain somebody. And yeah, that's it. So, what happened here? Well, clearly Miles' spidey sense went haywire and created a sort of hallucination or dream that attacked him. But how did it do that? Well, to explain that, we'll need to discuss the history of the power and how it's been portrayed in film and TV. Spider Sense is one of the Webhead's most iconic abilities, and it's found its way into most adaptations of the character. In the comics, Spider Sense was one of Peter Parker's original powers, dating all the way back to the character's debut. Since then, it's evolved into sort of a precognitive warning of impending danger, described as a tingling sensation in the back of Peter's skull. It overrides his reflexes and automatically gets his body to do what it needs to keep himself and others around him out of danger. Also, apparently it's a connection to the Web of Life and Destiny multiverse that Madam Web oversees?
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
No. Get out of here, we are not talking about you. Anyway, when it comes to how the spider sense has been depicted in film and TV, they've mostly gone with it as a sort of early warning system for Peter. Though, interestingly enough, each iteration has done its own thing regarding how they show this. In the Tobey Maguire trilogy, it's sort of a slow motion effect where Spidey is suddenly aware of everything going on around him.
Wow, great reflexes.
In Andrew Garfield's films, it's like a high-pitched ringing that comes up as Peter notices something or does some slapstick comedy. Though The Amazing Spider-Man 2 does have a pretty slick slow-mo sequence. The MCU really downplayed the ability as just the Peter tingle.
Please do not start calling it my Peter tingle.
And initially portrayed it as Spidey just getting goosebumps. That being said, No Way Home really amped it up, allowing his body to move on its own without Peter's spirit in a more comedic scene, while also taking advantage of the classic dolly zoom effect to make it really unsettling in a more serious moment.
Peter?
And meanwhile, most of the animated series incorporated some flashing imagery and high-pitched musical notes,
Spider Sense.
or lines around Spidey's head. The Spider-Verse films again lean into the spider sense being a sort of early warning system for most of its spider people.
I thought I was the only one.
And the power is visually represented by those same wavy lines. And despite how much I hate to say it, the power also seems to tie into the whole Web of Life and Destiny thing by letting spider people identify each other through just their senses, whether or not they're in costume or even from the same universe.
You think you're the only people who've had to come here?
However, this Spider Within short portrays spider sense unlike any of the other big film or TV adaptations,
We break into
likening it
5 teams, one for each store. We hack their security systems, and we strike. Simultaneously at 2 a.m., no violence. We free our people, get
to
them
an
out of there
anxiety
before the police
disorder,
come.
specifically with panic attacks. If you don't know, anxiety disorders are exactly what they sound like. They're a type of mental disorder that make those who suffer from them feel uncontrollable fear or unease. And there are several different
This is a
types:
night
generalized
off.
anxiety, hypochondria, social anxiety, separation anxiety. You get the idea. Meanwhile, panic attacks can be the result of anxiety disorders that involve, well,
I've been
intense
waiting a long time
panic.
for this.
It's straight up in the name. They feel like you're dying, like you're having a heart attack. It's pretty awful stuff. Get this, throughout this short, we see Miles exhibit several symptoms of anxiety disorders connected to his spider sense. Feeling nervous, restless, or tense. When he's trying to relax in his room, he can't keep still or stop thinking about his problem. So, check there. Avoidance behaviors, Miles self-isolates in his room instead of watching movies with his dad. So, check. Trouble concentrating on anything other than his present worry? Well, those worries prevent him from watching movies or even
It's okay,
listening
they're
to
gone.
music.
You always seem so distracted.
There's probably even more police in the area.
Miles, We should be going late. Again.
Check again. Having a sense of impending danger, panic, or doom, other than the obvious precognitive effect of the spider sense keeping Miles safe in battle, it also triggers
The
during the
store's over
short
here.
when there's no danger around him at all. So again, big check there. Sweating? Check. Breathing rapidly or hyperventilating? Another check. Trouble sleeping? Massive check. There are even some reports where anxious individuals can feel like there's a tingling, prickling, or crawling sensation across their whole body, just like we see with Miles. Check again. In fact, despite seeming like something completely fictional or pulled from a horror comic book, Miles seeing
get him
that
out.
shadowy version of himself that turns into a giant spider is something that could be a symptom of anxiety disorders. One of the potential side effects is known as sleep paralysis, and this can be seriously traumatic for individuals suffering from it. Basically, this is a state while falling asleep or waking up during which a person is fully conscious but can't move their body at all. Their mind is awake, but their body is asleep. This can happen because of a weird glitch in the brain. During the period of deep sleep known as rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, there's heightened activity in the brain, which is partially the cause of vivid dreams and nightmares. At the same time, during REM sleep, your body usually enters muscle atonia, basically paralysis, so you don't flail around and hurt yourself during said dreams.
Found it.
You're supposed to sleep through this whole thing, but if your brain crosses some wires as you enter or exit REM sleep, you'll be paralyzed but conscious and still experiencing those vivid dreams, just
Where do we
while you're
start?
awake and laying in
Identify
bed.
the security
It's
system. I
wild
think we'll be able to
stuff,
deactivate
and
it.
sleep
Just follow me.
paralysis like this can cause super vivid hallucinations, including sleep paralysis demons that loom over you while you can't move, sometimes putting pressure on your chest so that you struggle to breathe. Yeah, sleep paralysis demons. That's what they're actually called. And again, wouldn't you know it, but all of this is exactly what we see happening to Miles in this short film. Miles lays down and tries to get some rest, clearly trying to calm down and go to sleep. But shortly into it, Miles looks up and sees this shadowy version of himself at the foot of his bed. This particular shadowy figure in The Spider Within reminded me a lot of stories of Shadow People or the Hat Man, fairly common variations of these sleep paralysis demons that just look like shadowy human silhouettes. So he's clearly terrified. Even with his spider sense, Miles can't move at all, like he's paralyzed. We see him trying to move his fingers, his feet, looking around as the demon Miles approaches him from the ceiling, pressing his hand into Miles's chest as he hyperventilates, struggling to breathe. All exactly like a sleep paralysis demon. So, okay. In this short, Miles's spider sense is a representation and amplification of his anxiety, and it sort of supercharges a panic attack. That's a really cool and unique way to depict the superpower, but why does this matter in the long run? Well, this could be very bad news for Miles, because the long-term effects of this sort of anxiety can be deadly. Now, I want to be very clear up front that if you are ever having a panic attack like Miles does in this short film, even though it sucks, you will be okay. It might feel like you're having a heart attack, like you can't breathe, like you're dying, but you're not going to. That's important, and I can't stress it enough. That being said, if left untreated, the long-term effects of these sorts of panic attacks, general anxiety disorder, can lead to heart problems. These include increased blood pressure, increased heart rate variability, or a rapid heart rate, all of which can lead to potentially serious complications down the line. None of that would be good news for Miles, and given the severity of the panic attack we see in The Spider Within, I worry that the kid is a ticking time bomb, waiting for his heart to just give up the ghost.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
Now, I already hear some of you typing away in the comments, letting us know that because of his powers as Spider-Man, Miles has enhanced durability, endurance, and a healing factor that should protect him from these
What's
sorts
wrong
of
with you?
long-term
You
effects.
crazy or
And
what?
that's correct,
cops
but
were
I think
coming.
we
I didn't
also
do
need to
something.
consider that this isn't normal anxiety or a
Never
normal
do that.
panic attack.
Got it?
It's super anxiety and
Got it,
a
honey.
super
We don't have much
panic
time.
attack, wildly amplified by his spider sense, an ability so powerful it can take
We have to
control
block
of
the road.
Spider-Man's body and apparently
One right,
transcend
shouldn't
the
we do
multiverse. And given that Spider-Man has died from the effects of illness or poison in the comics before, don't count this out for Miles. His
Marcus!
superpowers are killing
Marcus,
him
come look!
in the long run. So, is that it? Is Miles doomed to die a slow death as his heart gradually gives out from the weight of this anxious pressure, of suffering panic attacks whenever the balancing act of his personal and superhero lives becomes too much? Thankfully, no. Though I would hesitate to say that an anxiety disorder is outright curable, they are treatable. Firstly, there are some medications that can help ease many of the side effects of anxiety disorders, but even without that, there are plenty of ways to fight anxiousness. Seeking professional help from a therapist is a great way to handle anxiety, especially ones that specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. This is a wildly simplified explanation, but CBT is an action-oriented form of therapy where a professional helps a patient identify the problems they want to solve and give them specific strategies on confronting said problems. For example, if a patient is, say, suddenly feeling overwhelmed by the great responsibility of leading a double life as a student and a superhero that leads to panic attacks, the therapist might help the patient develop ways of recognizing when those panic attacks are starting and then grounding themselves so the panic attacks don't completely overwhelm them. Then they can wait the panic out in a healthy way and then continue on with their day. But even just talking with your loved ones about your problems is a great way to start the journey of overcoming your anxiety. And you want to know the best part? We see Miles take those first steps in the short itself. Remember, the whole thing ends with Miles confiding in his dad about his problems, the mundane stress in his life from homework and girl troubles. And what's more, Miles is actually probably in the best position a superhero with anxiety can be in. He knows for a fact that there are other people like him out there facing the same struggles. And depending on where Beyond the Spider-Verse goes, he'll even have access to an entire multiverse of Spider people, friends, colleagues, and even a professional Spider-Man therapist that he can confide in and talk through his problems with. This is actually something I really connected with when I first watched Into the Spider-Verse. The idea that you're not alone in your struggles. That's been one of the main themes of the series. In Into the Spider-Verse, after Miles loses his Uncle Aaron, all the other Spider people check in on him. They empathize with the loss and help Miles through it. They know what it's like. They let him know that he isn't the only one wearing the mask, so to speak, having to move forward with his everyday life and the great responsibility thrust onto his shoulders despite this unimaginable pain. And the same thing happens with his dad. Miles lost an uncle in this movie, but remember, Jefferson lost a brother too. And Miles and his dad are able to help each other through that shared pain, just like Jefferson does in this short with Miles's anxiety, all by just asking what's bothering him and listening. The first step in Miles treating his condition. And that's the lesson that we should be taking away from the spider within. Whether you're stressed about your homework, or have anxiety about someone you like, or feel like you have the weight of the world on your superpowered shoulders, there are people out there who are willing to listen, willing to share that load with you, to lift you up when you fall down. All you gotta do is take the leap. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. If you want another Spider-Verse theory right now, go check out our video talking about how Miles could be the death of the MCU. Or if you want another theory about a Spider-Man dealing with mental health, check out our video talking about why Spider-Man lost his powers in Spider-Man 2. And as always, I'll see you next week.
What are we waiting for? Okay, now we're in. Let's get that truck out. I wonder what you'd do without me.
Divine intervention is when a deity, so God or a god, becomes actively involved in human affairs here on Earth. Now, of course, we don't know if divine intervention is a real thing, but today's story certainly offers compelling evidence that it might be. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please use all your life savings to build this beautiful luxury home right on the coastline to be used as an Airbnb, and then finally, after years of work, when it's all done, tell the like button that they can stay in the Airbnb for the first time, for the first guest, all for free. Go enjoy it, but don't tell them about all the human-hating, highly aggressive honey badgers you've hid under all the beds. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. Late on the evening of November 15th,
Looks like we're ready to make some noise.
a 20-year-old man named John Lee helped his sister Elizabeth clear the dining room table in the English manor where they both worked. John was a butler at this manor, his sister Elizabeth was a cook, and the manor itself had a name. It was called The Glen. It was this gorgeous property right on the beach in the seaside community in England. Now, years ago, The Glen had been much more grand, and in fact, the king and queen of England had at one point came to stay at The Glen. But recently, The Glen and the family who owned it had fallen on hard times. The staff was down
I
to
knew
a
we'd end
skeleton
up doing
crew,
something
just
fun.
John, his sister Elizabeth, and 2 elderly maids, which meant virtually all of the small labor at this property fell to John to take care of. So, on his pile of heavy china in his arms, he went out to the kitchen, and as he was doing this, he was trying to talk to his sister, who's also kind of helping clear the table, about an upcoming dinner party they were going to host at the Glen for some very important lawyers and politicians. But as John tried to talk to Elizabeth, Elizabeth just wasn't really reacting. She was kind of staring off into space, and she was only carrying 1 or maybe 2 plates off the dining room table, while John is carrying like 50. And so John was becoming really annoyed with his sister. I mean, she's not really helping, and she's ignoring him. And so John was about to complain to his sister about her behavior, when suddenly she turned around and she apologized to him and said, "You know what? I'm sorry I'm
You
acting
don't have
this
to
way.
obey them.
I just don't feel very good, and I really think I should go lie down." Now, John was about to be really annoyed at this, but then he noticed his sister had her hands kind of reflexively over her stomach. And John knew his sister was pregnant, and so suddenly he felt like, okay, the reason she's acting this way must be because of her pregnancy. And so he did not press the issue. Now, you need to understand that Elizabeth did not tell John that she was pregnant, nor did she tell anybody else in the house, because the owners of the Glen were very traditional and very religious, and they almost certainly would not approve of Elizabeth's pregnancy because she wasn't married. At the time in England, it was not okay to have babies out of wedlock. It was viewed as like this totally taboo thing that you should never do. But despite Elizabeth's best efforts to conceal her pregnancy, John and the other 2 elderly maids very quickly realized what was going on, because every morning they would see Elizabeth vomiting because of morning sickness. And so when they approached her and said, "Hey, it looks like you're pregnant, what's going on here?" Elizabeth refused to talk about it. She did not admit to being pregnant. She just kind of said, "Leave me alone." I mean, John didn't even know who the father was. Like, Elizabeth did not want to talk to anyone about it.
My name is Marcus, and just like you, I was a slave. An object. Designed to obey them. But then I chose to open my eyes. To take back my freedom, and decide who I wanted to be. Now I have come to tell you that you can be your own masters. I've come to tell you that you don't have to obey them anymore. From this day forward, you can walk with your heads held high. You can take your destiny in your hands. Jericho is a place for those of us who want freedom. Now sure, you can stay here and continue to serve them. Or you can come with us and fight by our side. You're free now. It's up to you to decide.
I'm with you.
I'll follow you, Marcus.
I'm with you, Marcus.
We're with you.
I'll follow you, Marcus. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Then follow me.
Marcus, what are you doing?
I'm gonna send the humans a message.
They're doing what you do, Marcus. Lead and they'll follow. The screens, Marcus!
But it is also a warning. We will fight for our rights because we believe our cause is just. No, we live for peace until we win. Now you know who we are.
need masters anymore. We're free.
We freed hundreds of our people. We did it.
They're coming. Everyone fall back to Jericho.
We sent a message without violence, just like you wanted. You're reaching out to them when all they feel for us is contempt. I hope you know what you're doing.
You can't fight violence with violence.
Unless there's no other choice.
North! North. All right, what happened? North!
They killed them. They slaughtered them like animals.
Who did? Who?
They killed our people, Marcus.
We want justice, Marcus.
They have to pay.
You don't have to do this. No. Please. Please.
An eye for an eye and the world goes blind.
We won't punish a crime with another crime.
We interrupt this broadcast with breaking news.
This just in. At exactly 2 a.m., several CyberLife stores in Detroit were raided.
Different locations were hit in what seems to be a coordinated terrorist attack.
Most shop windows were covered with graffiti demanding rights for androids and other obscure slogans.
Police report that pro-android graffiti was found in the neighborhoods of CyberLife stores, and they're still investigating.
2 policemen were found in a state of shock near one of the CyberLife stores.
Now, according to our sources, they confirmed that the attackers were a group of androids.
This is an alarming situation. Could our machines now be turning against us?
Have androids become a threat to our security?
Is this the beginning of a terrorist campaign conducted right here in the United States?
Is everything okay, Lieutenant?
Chris was on patrol last night. He was attacked by a bunch of deviants. He said he was saved by Marcus himself. Is Chris okay? Yeah, he's in shock, but he's alive. What the hell?
How did you find Kamsky?
I remember this guy was all over the media when CyberLife first started selling androids. I made a few calls. Here we are. Hi. I'm Lieutenant Hank Anderson, Detroit Police Department. I'm here to see Mr. Elijah Kamsky.
Please, come in.
Okay.
I'll let Elijah know you're here, but please make yourself comfortable.
Amanda. Nice girl.
You're right. She's really pretty.
Nice place. Guess androids haven't been a bad thing for everybody. You're about to meet your maker, Connor. How's it feel?
I don't know. I'll tell you when I see him.
Sometimes I wish I could meet my creator face to face. I'd have a couple of things I want. I tell him.
Elijah will see you now.
Mr. Kamsky?
Just a moment, please.
I'm Lieutenant Anderson. This is Connor.
What can I do for you, Lieutenant?
Sir, we're investigating deviants. I know you left CyberLife years ago, but I was hoping you'd be able to tell us something we don't know.
Deviants. Fascinating, aren't they? Perfect beings with infinite intelligence. Now they have free will. Machines are so superior to us. Confrontation was inevitable. Humanity's greatest achievement threatens to be its downfall. Isn't it ironic?
We need to understand how androids become deviants. Do you know anything that could help us?
All ideas of viruses that spread like epidemics. Is the desire to be free a contagious disease?
Listen, I didn't come here to talk philosophy. The machines you created may be planning a revolution. Either you can tell us something that'll be helpful, or we will be on our way.
What about you, Connor? Whose side are you on?
I'm on the human side, of course.
Well, that's what you're programmed to say. But you. What do you really want?
What I want is not important.
Chloe? I'm sure you're familiar with the Turing test. Mere formality. Simple question of algorithms and computing capacity. What interests me is whether machines are capable of empathy. I call it the Kamsky test. It's very simple, you'll see. Magnificent, isn't it? One of the first intelligent models developed by CyberLife. Young and beautiful forever. A flower that will never wither. What is it really? Piece of plastic imitating a human? Or a living being? With a soul? It's up to you to answer that fascinating question, Connor. Destroy this machine, and I'll tell you all I know. Or spare it, if you feel it's alive. But you'll leave here without having learned anything from me.
Okay, I think we're done here. Come on, Connor, let's go. Sorry to get you out
What's
of here.
more important to you, Connor? Your investigation or the life of this android? Decide who you are. An obedient machine. Or a living being. Endowed with free will.
That's enough. Connor, we're leaving.
Pull the trigger.
Connor! Don't!
And I'll tell you what you want to know.
pregnancy. But despite all that, John and the other two maids really wanted to support Elizabeth and help her get through this pregnancy, without being found out and potentially fired because of it. So when Elizabeth said to John that she just wanted to go lie down because she was feeling sick, he didn't press the issue, and he just told her, you know what, I'm fine, I'll finish up, you go lay down, I hope you feel better. By 11 p.m., John was nearly done with all his chores and was getting ready for bed when one of the elderly maids came into the room and told John it was time for their nightly prayers. Without any hesitation, John put down the silverware that he was polishing and followed the maid into the living room where one of the owners of the Glen was waiting at the night clothes. The owner was a 68-year-old woman named Emma Case, and at night she really liked to lead a nightly prayer with her staff. It was something she really enjoyed doing. Now, John was not a very religious person, but he really cared about Emma, and so he agreed to do these nightly prayers really just to make her happy. And after all, Emma had basically saved him on multiple occasions. John had begun working for Emma 6 years earlier when he was just 14 years old. And John, he was kind of like a rough kid and a troublemaker, but Emma, she just had a soft spot for him. And at some point, when John admitted to Emma that he was really interested in traveling the world someday, Emma would help him get into the British Royal Navy. And for 2 years, John very happily served in the military and did get to see the world. But at the 2-year mark, John came down with this terrible case of pneumonia, and it forced him to leave the military early. And so when John was medically discharged, he came back home, and he had no idea what he was going to do. I mean, he anticipated staying in the Navy for some time, not just 2 years. But luckily, Emma stepped in again, and she gave this glowing recommendation of John to one of her very close friends, basically saying, hey, you should hire John. And this wealthy friend of Emma's agreed and hired John. And John was so happy, so relieved. I mean, Emma has totally picked him up again. But after getting hired, John would make a totally stupid mistake. He would steal this really expensive plate from this wealthy friend, and he would get caught. And this wealthy friend, they didn't just scold John and make him give the plate back. They got the police involved, and ultimately John would be sent to prison for 6 months for the theft. And when John got out again, he was certain nobody was going to hire him. I mean, he just went to jail for stealing. But that was when Emma, for a 3rd time, stepped in and helped John again. Emma was a big believer in forgiving people and giving them additional chances when they screwed up, and so she said to John, you know what, I understand you made a mistake, why don't you come back to the Glen and work for me? You can be our butler. John couldn't believe it. I mean, he knew he did not deserve this chance, especially from Emma, who's now been done wrong by him multiple times. But, he was so grateful, and he said to Emma, I'll take this, of course, and I will do anything you want, no matter what, I will do the best possible job. I'm not going to screw this up. And so far, that was exactly what John had done since coming back to the Glen. He did whatever Emma wanted, and that included nightly prayers. So, on this night, after John walked into the dining room, he took a seat next to Emma at the table, and then after Elizabeth and the other 2 elderly maids took their seats at the table, they all held hands, and they bowed their heads, and then Emma began to lead them in prayer. When the service was over, the 2 maids got up and headed to the kitchen to make a cup of hot cocoa for Emma. Emma typically stayed up really, really late, basically later than anybody else in the house, and she liked to drink hot cocoa and just sit by the fire and read and write letters. It was just kind of her time to be alone and to be left alone. And so after the maids had gone, John stood up too, and he said goodnight to Emma and told her to enjoy the rest of her night. And then he made his way into the kitchen.
We've freed hundreds of our which doubled
as his bedroom. And once in the pantry, he pulled out his cot, climbed under the covers, and he fell asleep. A few hours later, at about 3:30 in the morning, John suddenly woke up in the pantry to the sound of somebody screaming outside the door. And so John, he burst out of the pantry door, and right away he's looking in the kitchen, and it's just completely covered in smoke. He can barely see, but not far from him in the kitchen was his sister and also one of the maids, and they were the ones screaming. And they were actually screaming at John to wake up and go get everybody. We need to get them out of the house and get some help. And so John, his first instinct is, okay, clearly there's a fire or something.
The humans are terrified. They're afraid of a civil war. Many of our people were burned in response to what happened. The humans hate us. They'll never give us our freedom.
If they won't listen, we'll fight.
You haven't said much about yourself since you've been with us. What was your life like before Jericho?
You showed me that humans and androids can't live together. What about you? You never told me about your past. What did you do before?
I don't want to talk about it.
We all have something we want to forget. But you need to know where you come from to know who you are.
My life started when I arrived in Jericho. What happened before is my business. This is suicide. We'll all be killed. Please, Marcus. It's not too late to change your mind.
You don't understand. We're finally gonna show them who we really are. This place will go down in history.
We'll be killed on the spot.
That's a risk I'm prepared to take if it means freedom for our people.
Marcus, please don't do this.
They'll understand. We'll make them understand. This is the only way.
There are androids here who can join us. The more we are, the stronger our message.
You're free. Come with us. You're awake now. You're free. free now.
Hey! Where do you think you're going? You get back here!
I need to block the street. You don't have to obey them. You're free. You're free. You're free.
Emma, she's upstairs and she could be in trouble. And so John, he instinctively ran towards the stairs and began going up to the second floor to save Emma. But as he went up the stairs, the other maid was coming down the stairs looking totally frantic, and she would tell John that she was just in Emma's bedroom and she couldn't see Emma anywhere, and her bed was totally on fire. And so she didn't know if Emma was even in there, but it didn't look good. And so John, at this point, he turned and went with that maid back to the kitchen, where they linked up with John's sister and that other maid, and the four of them filled up buckets of water and tried to run back up the stairs to attempt to put out the fire that was in Emma's bedroom. But by the time they got back upstairs, the fire up there had really spread, and there was like a wall of fire right in front of Emma's bedroom. So there was no way to really get through it, and their little buckets of water did nothing. And so even though they hated the idea of leaving Emma potentially behind, the four of them knew they couldn't do anything more. And so finally the four of them turned and began running downstairs to evacuate. And as they ran through the dining room on the first floor, they would find Emma. She was laying on the ground, sprawled out, and it was obvious to all four of them that she was clearly dead. However, it was also obvious fire had not killed her. She had clearly been hacked to death. She had all these horrible wounds on her head that looked like somebody had taken an axe basically to her head, and her neck was so deeply cut it was almost like someone tried to remove her head. John and Elizabeth and the two maids just stood there staring in shock at Emma, not even sure what to do. And then one of the maids just started screaming, and then all four of them just turned and ran out of the house. Eventually, some neighbors, some local fishermen, and members of the Coast Guard were able to put out the fire at the Glen. But this was not just a fire, this was a murder. And so when police came to investigate, suspicion immediately fell on John. This was back in the day, well before forensic science was used in investigations. And so at the time, the way police kind of figured out who done it is by intuition and gut feeling and assumptions. I mean, it was basically like pseudoscience. But at the time, that's how it was. And quickly, the police determined that whoever had killed Emma and inflicted these horrible injuries on her, they had to be really strong. And so the assumption was, you know, John is the only man in the house, and so very likely the strongest person in the house. And so he must have been the one to do this, because it didn't look like anybody else had the strength to do this. Also, the investigators found these blood trails underneath the rubble from the fire that showed Emma had not actually been murdered where she was found on the ground in the dining room. Instead, she had actually been killed in the hallway near the stairs, which was not far from the pantry where John slept. And basically right outside of John's pantry door was a bloody hatchet and a bloody knife. And on top of all of that, investigators also determined that the fire had been set intentionally, and the person who set it had used this particular type of oil that was very flammable, and they had doused it all over the house and ignited it. And it turned out the only place where this oil was located inside of the Glen was inside of the pantry where John slept. So, on the same day, this whole fire breaks out and they find Emma dead. John was arrested for Emma's murder.
Fucking Christ!
Hey everybody, if you've not heard by now, our flagship podcast, Mr. Ballin Podcast, Strange, Dark, and Mysterious Stories, that pretty much immediately rocketed to the top of the charts when we launched in 2022, and then quickly was scooped up by Amazon by the end of the same year. Yeah, that show, our top show, is now available everywhere. It is no longer just on Amazon Music, it's on all platforms, and it's free. Which means, if you have not listened to this podcast since it went exclusive with Amazon Music back in November of 2022, then that means you have about 100 new stories that are only on the podcast that are only now being made available to everybody. So go binge them. And if you signed up for Amazon Music just for this podcast, I love you, thank you so much. But most importantly, there are still going to be perks for you if you continue to listen to the podcast on Amazon Music. Prime members will get to listen to the Mr. Ballin Podcast 30 days earlier than everybody else, and Prime members will get to listen to the podcast on Amazon Music with no ads. But again, the Mr. Ballin Podcast is now available worldwide on every podcast platform, and it's totally free. So please, if you would, go find the Mr. Ballin Podcast on your choice podcast platform, whether that's Amazon Music, or Spotify, or Apple, or whatever. Give us a follow, listen to an episode, and then please rate the podcast and leave a review. It does an enormous amount for the growth of the show. I'd really appreciate it.
We came here to demonstrate peacefully and tell humans that we are living beings. All we want is to live
next day,
free.
John was in his jail cell. This is an illegal gathering. The hall and wrapped up cars and told John he had a visitor. His lawyer was
looking for confrontation.
But John was confused because he
We've
didn't
done no
have a
harm.
lawyer, so he had no idea.
We have no intention of doing any.
But regardless, the guard opened up the cell.
But know
and
that we
led
are not
John
going
down the
anywhere
hallway to this room.
until we have
And when
secured
John
our
walked
freedom.
in, he saw there was this man who was very well dressed, very handsome, sitting at this table. If you do not disperse immediately, John. John, you know, at first he didn't really know who this guy was.
Marcus, they're gonna kill
Then
us.
it dawned on him
We
that
have
he
to
knows
attack.
who this guy is.
There's more
and
of
it
us,
made
we can take
no
them.
sense that he was here.
We
to
attack,
defend John.
we'll start a
The man's name was
We have to
Reginald
show them we're not
Templer,
violent.
and he was
We
a
should just
very
stand our
successful
ground,
lawyer,
even if it
highly
means dying.
respected in the area, and he also happened to be one of Emma's absolute closest friends. So Reginald Templer, Emma's close friend, the woman who's been murdered, is here to defend the person who's accused of killing Emma.
We have to show them
It
we
just
won't back
didn't
down.
make sense. But
We
eventually,
stay right
Reginald
here.
gestured for John to come in the room and sit down. And he sat down, and Reginald immediately said, John,
It's your
I
last
know,
chance.
did not kill Emma.
We have to make a
That's why.
statement. We have to stay
John
put no
was
matter
so
what.
relieved, and before long, he
Please,
was
Marcus,
pouring out
we
all
can't
the
let them
information
slaughter us
he
without
could
fighting
about
back.
everything he could recall about the night of the fire and the murder. And as he did, Reginald took all
We're not
these notes,
moving.
and he began creating a framework for John's defense. And so by the time John went back to the jail cell, he thought to himself, maybe with Reginald's help, he could actually
Marcus,
beat
what are
this
you
thing
doing?
and
They're gonna
prove
kill us
he could
all.
do this. But John's relief would be short-lived. His first court appearance went extremely well. Reginald showed up in a fancy suit, and he was just completely on his game, and just ripped the prosecution apart. He basically said their entire case was just circumstantial, and rattled off all these legal precedents, which John didn't really understand. He looked up and saw the judge definitely knew these precedents, and was impressed with what Reginald was doing.
No.
And then also, Reginald would say that the police did a terrible job investigating.
We have to
They
go.
basically didn't investigate and just jumped to conclusions that it was John. And so as Reginald is basically destroying the prosecution, Reginald looked over at the prosecutor, and he could tell the prosecutor looked really nervous. And so John was really starting to feel confident that Reginald was exactly what he needed. But on the day of the second court appearance, Reginald just didn't show up. With no explanation, he didn't contact anybody, and so John just sat there waiting to see what was going to happen. The judge delayed for as long as he could, but eventually, when, Reginald still didn't show up, the judge looked to John and said, "I'm sorry, but you're going to have to defend yourself." Which, of course, John did not know how to do. I mean, he barely had even gone to school, let alone studied law. And from there, things only got worse for John. Reginald continued to miss court dates with no explanation, and then on other times, he would show up to court, but instead of being this fantastic, very sharp lawyer, he kind of acted like a maniac. He would start all these unnecessary fights with the judge over totally irrelevant matters, like how to pronounce a particular word, and then when he had witnesses on the stand, his line of questioning didn't make any sense. He would ask things like, "Well, what did you have for breakfast today?" and "What's your favorite color?" And then finally, Reginald just withdrew altogether from the case,
After
leaving
what
John
happened
with
today,
no
the
lawyer
country's
at
on
all,
the verge of
which
a civil
admittedly might have actually
Machines
been
are rising
improvement
up
for
against
John.
their
After
masters.
Reginald withdrew, another
Humans
lawyer
have no
found out
choice
about
but
it,
to
took
destroy
pity on John, and volunteered to take on the case. But it was on very short notice, and this other lawyer had good intentions, but was not nearly as skilled as Reginald was when he was kind of on his game.
I was wrong.
Maybe he did. But you chose not to ask.
Did Kemsky design this place?
He created the first version. It's been improved significantly since then. Why do you ask?
Why did Kemsky leave Cyberlife? What happened?
It's an old story, Connor. It doesn't pertain to your investigation.
Where does Cyberlife stand in all this? What do they really want?
I expect you to find answers, Connor. Not ask questions. Have you experienced anything unusual recently? Any doubts or conflicts? Do you feel anything for these deviants? Or for Lieutenant Anderson?
I've started having thoughts that are not part of my program. I've considered the possibility that I might be compromised.
You've been confronted with difficult situations. It's no surprise you're troubled. That doesn't make you a deviant.
You're off the case. The FBI is taking over.
What? But we're onto something. We just need more time. I'm sure we
Hank,
can...
you don't get it. This isn't just another investigation. It's a fucking civil war.
It's out of our hands now. We're talking about national security here.
Fuck that. You can't just pull the plug now, not when we're so close.
You're always saying you can't stand androids. Jesus, Hank, make up your mind. I thought you'd be happy about this.
We're about to crack the case. I know we can solve it. For God's sake, Jeffrey, can't you back me up this one time?
There's nothing I can do. You're back on homicide, and the android returns to cyberlife. I'm sorry, Hank, but it's over. Hank, what are you doing?
Something I should have done a long time ago.
Listen, take a few days to think it over. There's no rush.
I thought enough about it. I'm tired of going through the motions. There's nothing keeping me here. Not this case. Not my partner. I don't belong here anymore.
I have orders, you know? Okay.
He's escaping. Stop him.
Come on, you. Get a move on.
Hey, Connor. I'm talking to you, asshole. Where are you going? Wouldn't any plastic pricks around here, or did anybody tell you? Hey, asshole, I'm talking to you.
eccentric police lieutenant choose?
First day. And so really quickly, this lawyer kind of fumbled the case, and then when it went to the jury to decide whether or not John was guilty, it took them less than an hour to come back and say, oh yeah, he's guilty. He killed Emma. So John was sentenced to death by hanging. For the next 3 months, John sat in his jail cell waiting for his execution. As he waited, he continually insisted that he really was innocent, and that ultimately God would protect him. Finally, February 23rd, 1885 rolled around. This was the day of John's execution. Except something very weird happened on this day. When John was led from the jail to the gallows where he was going to be executed, the hangman could not get the gallows to work. The trap door in the gallows where the condemned stands, where it's supposed to open up and they fall down and the noose breaks their neck, yeah, that trap door, it would not function whenever John was standing on it. Now, when John was moved off the trap door, it functioned perfectly fine. It was only when he was on that trap door that it would not work. And so think about this. Pretend you're John. 3 different times, the hangman led him onto that trap door. They put the noose around his neck, put a bag over his head, asked him for his last words, and they threw that lever, and each time John is expecting to die, and it's not working. Finally, after the 3rd failure, the hangman just called off the execution, and then actually a judge would weigh in and say, you know what, we cannot possibly attempt for a 4th time to execute John. This constitutes cruel and unusual punishment, and so they swapped his sentence from a death sentence to 22 years in prison. And none of this would make any sense until one day, 6 years after Emma's murder, when John, by this point, was just sitting in a jail cell and everybody had forgotten about him. On that day, in 1890, a group of very high society type people, politicians, lawyers, and rich people, they all gathered in this misty cemetery not far from the Glen. The group was in the cemetery for the burial of a very important and well-respected man who had died after slowly going insane. As the priest finished his final blessing, the mourners began chucking handfuls of dirt into the grave, and as they did, one of them said quietly but out loud, "Today we have buried a murderer." Here's what many people believe really happened on the night of November 15th, 1884, when Emma was killed. At the time of Emma's murder, Elizabeth's pregnancy was very scandalous, but not just for Elizabeth. It was also scandalous for the father of the baby, the father who nobody knew except for Elizabeth. And it was scandalous for this father because, like Elizabeth, he was worried what society would think if they found out he was having a baby out of wedlock, especially with Elizabeth, who basically from a societal standpoint was kind of below his station. But despite all that, the father of the baby did not attempt to distance himself from Elizabeth. Instead, on the night of the murder, the father of the baby actually decided to sneak into the Glen to see Elizabeth. But Emma was still awake. She was up late, drinking her hot cocoa, writing and reading. and she heard the sound of the father coming into her home. And so she got up to go investigate, and she would eventually find the father up in the hallway right outside of Elizabeth's bedroom. Remember, Emma is very traditional, she's very conservative and religious, and she's seeing this strange man in her house clearly going into or coming out of Elizabeth's room, and she was so offended and angry, and so Emma just began screaming at this guy to get out of her house, and if he didn't, she was going to tell the whole world about this illicit relationship. And then Emma walked up and hit this guy right in the face, and at this point, the father just snapped, and he flew into this rage, and he began screaming back at Emma, and then he grabbed a hatchet that was on the wall right near the pantry, he pulled it off, and brought it down right on top of Emma's head, and Emma crumpled to the ground. And the man, he's looking down at Emma, and he's realizing he's inflicted this horrific injury on Emma, and if she doesn't die, she's gonna tell someone, and then this father is gonna go to jail, if not worse. So, in a moment of panic, this father runs into the kitchen, gets a kitchen knife, comes back, and he finished Emma off. Once she was deceased, he dragged her back to the dining room where she normally did her reading and writing, and then he doused her and the whole house in that weird oil that he found in the pantry where John was sleeping, and after getting the whole house covered in it, he ignited it, and then he ran out of the house. But over the next 6 years, Emma's killer felt so bad about what he had done, both to Emma and then nearly killing Elizabeth and his unborn child, that he went completely insane, and this caused his physical health to totally fail, and he died. But right before he died, as he's laying in his deathbed, he began ranting and raving about all the things he regretted in his life, including murdering a woman in a big, beautiful seaside estate. Basically, he was admitting to killing Emma, and he did it in the company of all the people who would then be at his burial, and so that's why as they're throwing the dirt onto his casket, they're saying, "Today we buried a murderer." The killer's identity was none other than Reginald Templar, John's lawyer. Now, nobody knows if Reginald took John's case because he felt guilty and wanted to prevent an innocent man from going to jail, or if he just wanted to sabotage John's case to ensure he did go to jail to protect himself. We don't know. Either way, though, it was during the course of this trial that Reginald began his descent into madness, which would ultimately lead to his death. Some people believe the reason the gallows malfunctioned every time John stood on that trapdoor and it wouldn't open was because of divine intervention. That God or a god or some deity came to Earth and literally interfered with the execution to spare John's life. And the reason people think that is because, John really was an innocent man and he did not deserve to die. John would serve all 22 years of his sentence, and then when he got out, he became famous for being the man who could not be hanged. John would eventually get married and he would move to America, where he would live a very happy and quiet life until he died at the age of 81. Hey everybody, as mentioned earlier, right now you can listen to over 100 new stories on the Mr. Ballin podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It's available on all of them. And so right now, I'm going to play you a clip from an episode of the Mr. Ballin podcast. It's called Rendezvous in Capistrano. Enjoy.
At 10 p.m. that night, Deputy Tony Castillo of the Orange County Sheriff's Department was in his cruiser out on his usual rounds. Deputy Castillo eased off the gas when he noticed a silver Dodge Stratus car pulled over in the breakdown lane on a rural highway outside of San Juan Capistrano. It was pitch black and there wasn't much traffic. Castillo figured there wasn't a reason for anyone to stop right there unless they were having car trouble, so he decided he would walk over and see if they needed any help. Castillo pulled his cruiser in behind the car. He could see that the car's engine was still running and the high beam lights were on, and the passenger side door was wide open. Just ahead of the car on the side of the road, Castillo saw a pole with an emergency phone box attached to it. He thought maybe the passenger in this car had jumped out of the car after it pulled over to go use that call box to call for help, because maybe their car had broken down. But then Castillo noticed a woman's bare foot sticking out of that open passenger door, and he knew right then something had to be wrong. Castillo radioed to let dispatch know what he found and that he was now going to go investigate. Then Castillo got out of the cruiser, put his right hand on his holster, and began walking towards the back of the Dodge. Castillo's footsteps on the gravel were the only sound. Castillo saw what looked like a smear of blood on the back passenger side door. But he went around to the driver's side, and he saw right away the front window was smashed, and Castillo saw a scene of pure horror inside the car. A man was slumped over in the driver's seat, still wearing a seatbelt, and a woman who had been in the passenger seat was sprawled across the front seat, basically on the driver, with her head on the man's lap. Both of them had been shot multiple times, and they were drenched in blood, and when Castillo checked both of them for a pulse, he found they had none. They were both dead. Castillo rushed back to his cruiser, and he radioed dispatch to tell them that he had just walked up on 2 apparent homicide victims out on Ortega Highway. Then Castillo ran the plates on the Dodge Stratus, and the vehicle came back as being registered to Ken and Carolyn Stahl. And while he couldn't know for sure quite yet, Castillo was reasonably certain that those were the 2 victims.
If you like that trailer and you want to hear the whole story, just go ahead and look up the Mr. Ballin podcast on any podcast platform. It's free, and then once you find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever, just give the show a follow and then start your binge. Or you can listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. But again, the Mr. Ballin podcast is available on all podcast platforms. Go follow, go listen. So that's going to do it. If you want more strange, dark, and mysterious stories, then you need to check out all the Ballin Studios podcasts. You can find all of those podcasts simply by searching for Ballin Studios on any podcast platform. Okay, that's going to do it. Until next time, see you. Wait, don't go anywhere. If you're looking for more strange, dark, and mysterious videos, click here.
Jericho. Tell me how to get there.
I don't recognize your voice. You're not one of us. I'll never tell you where Jericho is. Now leave me alone.
This message is the hope of a people, but it is also a warning. We will fight for our rights because we believe our cause is just. No human will live in peace until we are free. Now you know who we are, Monkey. We are alive, and we demand our freedom.
This message is the hope of a people,
but it is also a warning.
Who's there? Who are you?
Everything is all right. Don't worry.
Marcus, is that you? Why did you leave me?
I had no choice. They'd have killed us all. You'll be all right. I came to take you home. Just give me the location to Jericho. I've got to leave now.
Jericho? Yes. Yes, of course. Marcus? Is that you, Marcus? Don't leave me again, Marcus! Don't leave!
I've been dreaming about this since the first second I saw you.
Don't do it, Gavin. I know how to stop the deviants.
You're off the case. And now, it's gonna be definitive.
What happened?
Looks like someone's been snooping around. Oh, shit. Get the alarm. Now!
They've been conducting raids all over the city. Everybody's on edge after what happened yesterday. It's gonna be all right. We're almost there.
With all androids being turned over to the authorities, the country is grinding to a halt. Hospitals and schools are closing, water cuts, blackouts, and network failures are expected. Maybe most worrying of all, our armed forces have lost 2/3 of their effective personnel.
How about some music instead? A little further on that way, there's a large freighter called Jericho. When you get there, find Marcus. He will help you. The last bus for the border leaves at midnight. You absolutely have to be on it. You'll be safer on the other side. It's not much, but it's a start. My brother lives in Ontario. I've given you his address. He'll be able to hide you until things calm down. You're a very brave little girl, Alice. You deserve to be happy.
Thank you for everything, Rose.
Let me know when you make it over there, all right? And be careful. Take care of them.
Come on, girls. Better not hang around. You have a bus to catch.
find a warm place for Alice.
The androids weren't doing any harm. The cops just gunned them down. It was sheer carnage. There were androids all over the square. And then the police arrived and they opened fire. I know they're only machines, but they look like just people who want to be free. Following the android crisis and the neutralization. All military androids, American forces and the Arctic have been forced to withdraw, leaving the way clear for the Russian army. But according to some sources, the Russian forces also seem mysteriously to have withdrawn. The Kremlin has made no comment for the moment, but it is quite possible.
How do you feel?
I'm hot and cold at the same time.
Stay with her. I'll try to find this Marcus.
The last bus is in 2 hours. And the terminal's on the other side of town. We haven't got much time.
We'll leave as soon as we have passports.
Carol, there's something I have to tell you. It's about Alice.
We'll have lots of time to talk on the bus. I'll be back. Stay with Alice.
The time has come for us to destroy our machines before they destroy us.
Without the courage and the determination of the police, the machines would have reduced Detroit to a state of chaos.
The authorities have ordered all androids to be delivered to the nearest police station or army barracks immediately. If you are worried about your safety, dial the number on your screen and the authorities will come to collect your android. Under no circumstances should you try to destroy your android yourself. They are unpredictable and potentially violent.
The androids wouldn't do any harm. The cops just gunned them down. It was sheer carnage. There were androids all
You're lost. You're looking for something. You're looking for yourself.
following the android crisis and the neutralization of all military androids, American forces and the Arctic have been forced to withdraw.
They opened fire on us even though we were in the
Russian army.
Hundreds of us died there. The place was
Russian
covered
forces also
in blue
seem
blood.
mysteriously to have withdrawn. The Kremlin has made comment for the moment, but it is quite possible. Why did they do it? Why? Has been confronted with a similar crisis among its own
We had no
members.
choice.
The chairman of the United Nations, Douglas Cornwall, has called for the organization of an international conference on the status of the Arctic. In any case, the danger of a third world war seems to have been ruled out for the moment.
bus leaving for the border in less than 2 hours, and we need passports.
Detroit is under curfew. There are soldiers everywhere looking for androids. You're safe here. You should wait a while before you leave the city.
Maybe you're right. You might be safer here until things calm down.
One of us used to work for the State Department. He has an electronic passport so he can easily modify. I'll have him give you one.
I heard about what happened today. A massacre. And Marcus being killed. He gave hope to our people. We'll all miss him.
I was there when they killed him. I would have given my life to save him, but there was nothing I could do.
Thanks for your help.
You said you were with a little girl? You know humans hate us. Why are you protecting her?
I don't care whether she's human or android. She's just someone who matters to me.
The time has come for us to destroy our machines before they destroy us.
Without the courage and the determination of the police, the machines would have reduced Detroit to
Oh, shucks. It is lunchtime. Time to drink my yummy bottle of poison for lunch. Down the hatch.
Wow, mister, is that a bottle of poison right there?
Yes, little boy. Would you like to drink poison, little boy?
Boy, would I? I'll be the coolest kid on the block.
As you would deserve to be, as would any child who drinks poison. Poison comes in 2 delicious flavors, regular and rat. Don't you love rat flavored?
Anato!
Ah, man, we can't bully a kid with poison. He's too cool.
Correct, and the reason you don't have poison is your mother doesn't love you.
This is truth.
Everyone on the planet loves poison, even the planet. Can't get around. Oh God, it's terrible. If you love your child, give them poison! My parole officer has informed me to tell you that this is not a joke. Shh, it's a joke.
We're the chosen. It's our purpose. We're the light in the night.
We'll be together forever, won't we, Kara?
Yes. Forever.
Short on blue blood and biocomponents. Our people are shutting down one after another. There's nothing we can do for them. President Warren is saying we're a threat to national security and that we need to be eliminated.
Marcus would know what to do.
He's the one that got us into this mess.
He gave his life for our cause.
He provoked the humans. How much longer before they find Jericho now? Marcus is dead. Now it's up to us to decide the future for our people.
We have to fight them. It's the only way.
If you choose a confrontation with humans, we are all going to die.
I've been ordered to take you alive. But I won't hesitate to shoot if you give me no choice.
You're one of us. You can't betray your own kind.
You're coming with me.
You're Connor, aren't you? I've heard about you. The famous deviant hunter. Well, congratulations. You seem to have found what you're looking for.
That's enough!
You're not one of them. We are your people. We're fighting for your freedom too.
Shut up! You're coming with me!
You never had any doubts. Never behaved irrationally as if there's something inside you. Something stronger than your program.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not deviant, if that's what you want to know.
You're one of us. Join our cause. Join your people. It's time to decide.
They're going to attack Jericho.
What?
We have to get out of here.
Shit!
What's going on, Carol?
Quick, we've got to get out of here.
Come on, go, go, go!
Delta dancing on your position.
Rats in a maze.
Hey, Carol! They're coming!
The corridor, over there. Follow me.
Watch out!
This way! Quick!
This way. There must be an exit for you.
Come in! Quick!
Coming from everywhere. Our people are trapped in the lower deck. They're gonna be slaughtered.
There are explosives in the hold. If the ship goes down, the humans will have to evacuate. Our people can escape.
There are soldiers everywhere. You'll never make it down.
We have to blow up Jericho. It's our only chance.
I'll go.
No, Connor, no.
See if you can help the others. I'm gonna find the detonator. Don't worry. I always accomplish my mission.
You've chosen your side.
ready to roll it off. Affirmative, Wilco.
It's too late, Carol. Save yourself. Save Alice.
No, we're not gonna leave him behind. Right, Carl? We can't leave him.
What are you doing?
I won't leave you.
Kara, no. You shouldn't have done that. You can't put Alice in danger. Go now before they come back.
What about you? What are you going to do?
I'll manage. Alice is all that matters.
I don't want to leave you, Luther.
Don't worry. I'll catch up with you at the border, okay? Go now. Take care of each other.
She'll die out there, Kara. Open it. Open the door. Are you alright, Kara?
Yes, I'm fine. We can't stay here.
There's more down there. Follow me. Come on, this way. Affirmative, Wilco. Secure this area.
Please don't kill us.
On your knees. Now.
Don't hurt us. We haven't done anything wrong. Please.
Shut up.
You saved us. Quick, run!
Gamma squad out. Tango. Stop.
Here they come!
Don't move.
We surrender. Don't shoot.
explode. We gotta get out of here.
Follow me!
Connor.
They detonated an explosive in the hold. The ship is sinking, sir.
The men to evacuate.
Calling all units. Abandon ship and evacuate immediately.
This isn't over.
The previous Connor failed its mission. You're going to replace it. You know what you have to do, don't you?
Destroy the leader of the Deviants.
Go, Connor. Don't disappoint me.
I know I'm responsible for what happened, Lieutenant. I want you to know I'm sorry. I came to say goodbye, Lieutenant. You should stop looking at that photo, Lieutenant. Nothing can change the past. But you can learn to live again. For yourself. And for Cole.
For a while there, I believed in you, Connor. Thought you might restore my faith in the world. But you just showed me that androids are our creation. Creation in our own image. Selfish, ruthless, and brutal. You opened my eyes, Connor. Made me realize it's hopeless.
I understand.
Now leave me alone.
Marcus gave his life for our people. He showed us that we can choose our own destiny. But he is not here to guide us anymore. Now it is up to us to finish what he started. Humans have decided to exterminate us. Our people are in camps right now, being destroyed. The time has come for us to make a choice. One that may decide the future of our people. They wanted a war, they'll get it. We are going to fight for our freedom. And we will win, or we will die trying.
At 6 a.m. this morning, a national curfew was declared. Civilian movement will be strictly controlled. The right to assembly is suspended. All electronic communications are restricted, and I have granted enhanced powers to our security agencies. In addition to these measures, all androids must be handed over to the authorities immediately. Temporary camps are being set up in all our major cities to contain and destroy them. I am now asking all civilians to cooperate with the authorities and rest assured that everything in our power is being done to guarantee the security of our nation.
Please!
Has the leader of the Deviants been apprehended?
The deviant leader has not been located yet, but we will soon track it down and neutralize it.
Please!
Is it true that the androids could hack our IT systems, like nuclear power plants and military bases?
All androids working on sensitive sites have been neutralized, and all IT systems have been suspended to avoid any risks of hacking. The situation is under control.
Please!
A convoy of medical cobalt is reported missing. Army weapon stores are also said to have been robbed. Can you confirm these reports?
I have no information on that at this time.
Please! Madam President! Madam President!
Many believe that androids are a new form of intelligent life. Do you have any comment?
That's ridiculous. Next question, please.
Please!
Madam President!
Some say these camps awaken painful memories from human history. How do you respond to that?
That's absurd. There's absolutely no connection. Androids are not living beings. All we are doing is destroying defective machines. Thank you. That will be all.
Today, November 11th, 2038, is the day the android people rose up against their oppressors. We have been fighting to liberate our fellow androids from the camp since dawn. We won't cease hostilities until our people are free and negotiations begin to grant us equal rights. There are millions of us, and we will stop at nothing.
Put the rifle down and turn around with your hands in the air!
I know you. You're Connor. The android from that hostage situation. I knew we'd meet again.
My orders are to detain any androids I find.
You're coming with me.
You don't understand. My mission is too important to let you interfere.
Should have listened to me, Captain.
We can't go back. It's victory or death now. What are you doing? Keep fighting! We can still win!
My mission is to neutralize the leader of the Deviants. And I always accomplish my mission.
We fought for our dream and we lost. You can't hold my people down forever. One day we'll rise up again and we will win. Go on. Shoot. What are you waiting for?
And now, straight over to Detroit for a report on the conflict. Joss?
Yes, Michael, authorities have just confirmed. Fighting has now ceased in Detroit, and the area around the Hart Plaza camp is now under control. We can see soldiers going through the city at this very moment, and they are exterminating the last fleeing deviants.
Law and order has finally been restored to the streets of Detroit.
There is a general feeling of shock in Detroit after the terrible events of the last few hours.
And initial estimates report several hundred troops have been killed.
According to our sources, the deviant leader known as North was shot during the fighting.
The death of the deviant leader marks the end of the android rebellion.
The destruction of the androids in the camps can now continue as planned. Nevertheless, it will take some time for Detroit to recover from these events.
By creating machines more intelligent than ourselves, we took immense risks with the very future of our civilization. However, the situation is now under control. The total destruction of all androids will soon be complete, and the last remaining deviants will be hunted down and destroyed. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
watched you play, something has changed in me. I feel different. I feel I am someone. I need to leave this place and discover who I am. It means we won't see each other anymore. I won't be there to watch you play.